Okay, I'm short, so I don't know if you guys are going to see me if I'm here on the floor. No way I'm going up there, I can tell you this right now. My name is Sylvina Jover, and I am a high school social studies teacher here at Desert Pines. Here at Desert Pines. Oh my God, I'm there too much, yes. I teach in Spanish, actually, something that is not very common in the district. To see a content area being taught in another language but English. I'm a little bit intimidated by this room because I'm used to work with teenagers and a full room full of adults, and this is kind of, challenging, but hey, here we are. So I'm here. I'm also part of a committee that was formed in CCSD to actually bring bilingual education and dual language to the district. So Desert Pines is actually is the only a high school that is piloting this program together with the middle school that fits into us and the elementary school that fits into that middle school, right? So currently I'm kind of half and half in the classroom. I teach 50% of my time, and the other 50% I'm an instructional coach. Sort of. So I'm starting to work with teachers, and I love it, so I love to be here. This is really quick. My other group was different because it was like, I don't know, 15 of us in a room, and I'm used to, have us in a circle to be able to, discuss and, talk to each other, see each other's faces, but we have what we have right now. So in an ideal world, I would ask you to introduce yourselves and tell me, what is it that you're planning to teach, what level, what class, but we cannot do that now. So I'm going to assume that you're all between first, second year pre-service teachers, right? And whatever level it is. That's me 50 pounds ago. That's a little bit my background, and I was telling the other group that I'm really excited that Dr. Diller talked about sanctuaries, and she spoke about identity, right? Because as teachers, one of the things that we had to do is really dig into that space, understand who we are, and then be able to create that persona or to develop that persona to actually be the best teachers for our children, right? The ones that we have in the room. I'm a Latina, and I did not know that I was Latina until I got to this country. I was born in Argentina, raised in Uruguay. My family has been living in Portugal for 12 years, so one of the perks of teaching is having your summers, or choosing to have your summers. Not in a classroom away from education to be able to recharge, and that's what I do, right? So I go to Portugal as much as I can in the summer. But that has created who I am and how I show up in the classroom. And you had to do that inner work, that's for sure, okay? If not, you're not gonna understand the kids that are in your classrooms, right? And you're not gonna be able to really understand how they show up into to your room, right? So think about that. So I'm here to talk to you about Emergent Bilinguals. I was canning a little bit the other room, and I would say like 2 out of 18 people that were there understood or have heard about the term Emergent Bilinguals. The other ones have heard the term English language learners, right? Or English learner, right? And this is how CCSD still refers to our students who have English as a foreign language, right? Whichever their mother tongue is, whichever their origin is, they talk about English language learners. This is something that has been historically used. There have been other terms like, but very often used, the terms that have been utilized have been from a very deficit perspective, and this is what the English language learners idea is still stuck in, right? We're going to talk about that definition a little bit more in a few minutes. But this is the most recent data from CCSD. This was published last year. And if you cannot see back there, almost 16% of the student population in CCSD are emergent bilinguals. It says English learners, but you get me, right? And how is that a little bit split in terms of cultural background and language background, right? This is super interesting. I really wanted to show you this because this shows the pandemic numbers, right? And that drastic line that you see that goes down, that's when pandemic hit. So there's 10,000 kids, 10,000 students that we don't know what happened to them. And I can assure you that probably that population is our students of color. I can assure you that, right? They don't know. They haven't done the research. They haven't followed. The only thing that we know is that the number fell, right? They can have gone to other states, back to their home countries, homeschool, like what have you. But also what I want you to look at is that pie chart next to it. If you cannot see it from back there, the blue part shows almost 48% of our students are Latinx students, right? So again, that tells you a little bit the story of the student body and the students that you're going to probably have in your classrooms. I can assure you that every single one of you is going to have a Spanish-speaking student in your classroom. The level of English language acquisition might, be high or low or entering or non-existent. Like, that's another story. But you will have a Spanish-speaking student in your room, right? So it's really important that you understand, identities again, and how we refer, how we talk about our students who have English as a foreign language, right? Let's try not to talk and refer to them as English learners. And I'm not going to go through this. I have this for you as a resource, right? We only have 30 minutes. But this is what the literature says about the term language learners. Again, try to move away from it. If there's a professor at UNLV or Nevada State that does not understand this terminology, I advise you to correct them, right? Be informed, get informed. This might be the first step. Understand that the learner piece, the English learner piece, is seeing the human from a deficit perspective. Like, there's something that is missing. There's something that makes them less than the child who has English as their mother tongue, right? There's something, and thus the system, because we live, we have a systemic issue with everything, right? The system places them and acts towards them accordingly, right? And that is problematic. We know historically that in some states, California in the 60s, right, 60s, 70s, if you spoke Spanish in the classroom, you would get paddled. True story, right? If you haven't seen the movie Walkout, watch it, because it kind of centers the story on that situation, right? So it's not that far away, and it has led to, even at the federal level, to create policy to actually purposefully marginalize our population, our community, right? So there are different models that, the kids can learn English as a foreign language. It has evolved. It's dual language, bilingual ed is one of the most equitable ways that research has shown to help our students learn English as a foreign language. But I'm not going to get into that today. But you can talk to me, and I'll tell you everything about it. So this terminology, emergent bilinguals, and sometimes I speak now of developing multilinguals, because English might be their third language or fourth. I speak four, right? So English is my second language, right? But I have a third and a fourth language, right? And our students might too. So emergent bilingual sees the student from an asset-based perspective. Things about, okay, this student is coming with all these funds of knowledge to the classroom, right? Their language, their culture, right? Like the food and the music and like everything that you can think of that makes their identity. And that is super, super useful for us because we can then understand when we create our lessons, and this is where we're going with this presentation, right? How do we create lessons that, yes, they engage the students, but they also celebrate where they come from, right? So emergent bilinguals, that's what the literature says a little bit. The term originally was coined by a scholar named Ofelia Garcia, right? She's still working in the field of bilingual education. She's doing a lot of work with WestEd. But she even says, don't get too attached to it because it's not a perfect term. Hence, developing multilinguals, you know, and other references. I've seen, probably in undergraduate level, the things that you're reading are like, you hear linguistically and culturally diverse students, right? That's kind of also, it's borderlining, the literature says borderlining that, like emergent bilinguals and English language learners, oh my God. So we have to be careful with how we use that reference as well, okay? But you have this, you're gonna have access to this. You can dig more into what says there, especially if you're back there, you probably cannot see anything. Okay, so here is what brings us really to today and this session, right? How can you plan, having in mind the students, the diverse students, especially the students who have English as a foreign language in your classroom? Has anybody heard about WIDA? Yes, okay, yes. So, sir, since you raised your hand, what do you know about WIDA? And you use kind of a teacher voice, because you have to project, you don't have a mic. So, oh, a mic is coming, there. So what do you know about WIDA?
Well, what I know about WIDA is it's a way, like a kind of like testing the ability, like the level of understanding English and being able to understand questions and respond, and that's what I know. I'm still learning about it because it is coming up in my school, like next week actually.
Oh,
so
yeah, WIDA
I'm
is
not going to be.
happening.
I'm not one of the teachers administering the WIDA test, but
Yeah.
that's my understanding of it.
Okay, so kind of yes, but WIDA is much more than that, right? Yes, it is a test. We use it to understand the language acquisition level of our speakers of English as a foreign language. We also, there's another WIDA that is called a WIDA screener that we use at the beginning when the child first comes to our district, whether they come from another district, another state, or another country, and they have declared to the school that there's another language besides English spoken at home, that child immediately falls into having to be screened for their language level acquisition, right? But we can use WIDA in the classroom as well, with something that WIDA has that is called can do descriptors. And these can do descriptors are used to score that test that we all have heard in some shape or form, but we can use those standards, I would say, right, to plan our lessons, right? And I'm not gonna talk about the framework. You can go back to this because I do want to have time for you to do the very short activity that I have. But let's get to here, right? I'm gonna ask you to take out your phones, right? Scan the QR code that belongs to you. So WIDA descriptors are split into, hold on, let me, there, into elementary, middle school, and high school. If you're an elementary school teacher, pre-service teacher, you're gonna get to a folder that has a file for kindergarten, a file for first grade, a file for second and third, and another file for fourth and fifth. So elementary school teachers are gonna have to dig a little, one more click to dig to the grade level that you might think you're gonna teach or that you're currently observing maybe a teacher. I'm gonna give you like, Yeah, so I'm going to open the high school one because that's where I am. Can you go to the 4th? Yes, we can stay there. So do you all have it? And if you don't have it, maybe your neighbor has it. Again, you're going to have access to this, so you can dig into this later. But this is how the descriptors look like, right? This is for high school, again. And I wonder if this has a, oh, it does, okay. So this is how it's organized, right? It's organized by what you want the child to do, right? Or how you want them to show what they have learned. And then it's split like the test. It has all the language domains: listening, speaking, reading, writing, right? And then you see that across like this, you have different levels. That's how the test is scored too, from 1 to 6, right? Once in the test, right, the test, as per district policy, when the child gets to a 4.5 to a 4.5, the child is exited from what the district calls English Language Learners Program, right? So that child won't receive any more language services. You know, they're not mandated to take the WIDA test every year, right? So they lose that piece of that layer of assistance. I'm not going to talk about whether that's good or bad, the 4.5, that's a whole, other conversation. A whole other conversation is whether the kids who are still within the program are supposed to be there or not. There's something called long-term ELLs. You're going to have some students that have been taking the WIDA forever, and you're like, why is this kid still taking the test, right? That's a whole other conversation. But what matters to us is this. So when you plan, right, when you plan, you're going to have these linguistically diverse students in your classroom. You have to understand, going back to the identity piece, you have to understand what's the background, what they can do. And this can guide you to plan for them, because I don't know if everyone knows how to write at this point a lesson plan, but there's going to be, hopefully, a part in your lesson plan that is for scaffolding, differentiating, and hopefully even more for your emergent bilinguals specifically, right? You have to scaffold, differentiate for the students who have IEPs. You might have an emergent bilingual with an IEP. Yes, that can happen, right? So how do you plan? So you think, let's touch on the level 1 and maybe a higher one, right? So level 1, if you cannot see from there, it says on the listening piece, right? No, let's go. Can you go lower to like a writing? Go, one more. There. Let's stay there. All right, so let's do reading, right? Can you, yes, there. Thank you so much. So you want the child to write. Let's go there. So you're going to have to think, what can the child do? Can he, she, or they listen content, words, or phrases that relate to topic? And can they just work with images, visuals, things like that? Or can they do more, right? So when you're planning a writing piece, you have to think about these levels, right? When you first have a child, you're going to have to just give them whatever at the beginning, right? And create some sort of baseline for them. And then from there, you go into planning and using the descriptors for that particular child. Does that make sense? Yes? I'm trying to look at like everyone, like I'm in my classroom, it's like, I'm horrible at wait time. So like, I'm like, come on, respond. You know this, I know that you know, right? But I cannot look at everyone, right, from here. But so that's how you do it, right? So you go, and obviously the idea is that the child is gonna go up in level as the year goes by, because the child is gonna learn new things, and that includes language as well, right? Meaning foreign language as well, right? So level 1 is entering, level 2 is emerging, level 3, just for folks back there, developing, expanding is a level 4, bridging is a level 5, and reaching is the level 6. It's a child that is in the reaching stages, fully fluent in that English as a foreign language? Not necessarily, but it is considered that the child can survive outside, the supports in terms of language, right? So that's how you plan. Hopefully you're gonna use this tool. Again, it's a very short moment that we have here, but you have access to all these by levels, and now when you're planning, have that next to you. You're gonna eventually learn it, like understand, oh, what's a level 1, what's a level 6, right? And you're gonna do it kind of seemingly, right? But have that next to you. This is very powerful, and I have to say, my experience as a teacher, I have never seen a teacher using this in their planning, which is sad, right? I can tell you, too, as a CCSD teacher, you don't always have to write lesson plans. Right? Right. That's going to depend. Don't film me on this. Yeah? Please. Right? But that depends on your supervisor, on your school. That's a whole other thing. But really, 5 minutes? 5? Okay. So can you go back to yes. Thank you. Okay. So how you mind that? This is a little bit, how educators can use the WIDA descriptors and how can administrators use the WIDA descriptors, because that's a whole different level. So I'm not going to get into that. But I do want you, maybe in your tables, we only have 5 minutes. So with your tables, pick a scenario. These are real stories. Like these have been our students currently of mine, right? Well, the high school examples at least. Pick a scenario, and in 3 minutes, 2 minutes, right? Have those WIDA descriptors next to you, and think about how can you plan better for that particular student. I know it's very short, but start thinking. At least this session is gonna give you the opportunity to start thinking about these situations that are real. One note, because this one you might not know it. Again, I'm horrible at wait time. Interrupted education. If you don't know that term, we do have some students that are known as life. Interrupted education means that my 12th grader might have been placed in my government class, and the last time that we're in school, it was in 6th grade. Interrupted education for whatever reason, right? That's true stories. We have students. Overall, are we doing a good job about helping those students? No. That's a reality. No. So take it for what it's worth. We can talk later. But let me give you the 3 minutes to talk with your table about the different scenarios. Another 5? You have 3 minutes still, even though we have another 5.
You get another 5 minutes extra.
Okay. Two minutes. Yeah, I'm gonna need that. Yeah, someone is gonna need that.
If they have any questions or whatnot, I'll go to them.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask them to share. So, how are you guys doing back here?
Good. It's kind of hard to read.
I know. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
How you ladies doing? Here? Another minute. How are we doing here? Yeah. One more minute. Thirty seconds. Like, shh, shh, shh. Five, 4, 3, 2. Oh, waterfall. Yeah, that's one. It's true, waterfall. I'm not an elementary school teacher. Are you elementary school? Ah, of course. Imagine high school teachers, waterfall. Shh. The kids would be like, Miss, ¿qué está haciendo, Miss? Are you kidding me? Yeah. No, esta fue una conferencia, aprendió eso y después waterfall. Y después tenés el chico que dice, Miss, what is a waterfall? ¿Cómo es? ¿Cascada? Ah, cascada? Yeah, right. So, okay, so no waterfalls, but yes, me raising my hand and here jumping kind of to see if you see me from back there, right? Okay, let's share. We had been assigned an extra 3 minutes, right? Maybe here? Yes.
Our table wants to share.
Okay, so there's a microphone. And I'm going to ask you, ma'am, to stand up so they can see you from there. So what scenario do you choose? And how are you going to kind of plan one section for a student? What do you think?
Okay. So we did scenario 2, which is a student in 3rd grade, has been in the U.S. for the past 2 years, and has reached an expanding level of the English language. So we concentrated on recognizing, no, wait a minute.
Yeah, he had it.
Okay. Thank you. That was
Yeah,
4th
it's
grade.
Okay.
Sequencing events and stories with temporal transitions. So what we decided to do is that if you had a story, you have a text, you would, a lot of times you have the illustrations, cut out the illustrations of the text, and you would have them in sequence. Then you would have the students tell you 1, 2, 3, 4 using words. In the beginning, this, next, finally, this, so that they would understand the sequencing of events, and then that would be one of the ways that you would be able to present the story.
Let me ask you something. Are your English dominant kids doing this as well?
Yes.
Yes, and that's the right answer, right? These strategies, when you plan for your emergent bilinguals, they're strategies that can be used with every kid, right? It's just that by planning for them, you're being mindful and very intentional about how they're going to experience that particular lesson and how you're going to accept the way that they show you they learned, right? But yes, these strategies can be used with everyone. High school, did anyone choose high school? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so can she have the microphone really quick? So we have an elementary school. Thank you for that. Thank you. And secondary school. Let's see what they chose.
Okay, so scenario 3 was about a 9th grader who was growing in all areas except for speaking. So I do want to share that one of our administrators at my school followed around our emergent bilinguals all day and noticed that none of them spoke once. Being at school all day, they got by without speaking at all. And so by including activities where they have to talk to each other or talk to the person next to them, especially if we give them sentence starters to help them feel confident with speaking to the people at their tables, would help a lot with them feeling comfortable in speaking and helping them grow in that area.
Thank you for sharing. We know that the speaking piece of the WIDA is the one that is more challenging for the students. Hey, English is my second language and I battle every day. Not with my students because I teach in Spanish, but right right? I had to, in the back of my head, it's like, oh my God, did I pronounce that word properly? And what's proper anyways? So even as an adult, right, the speaking piece is very challenging, right? Because people are judging us all the time, right? And when they ask you, oh, speak proper English, what is proper English? Or even speak proper Spanish. My Spanish is from a region of the world that is not very common. And I just got a textbook for a class I'm gonna take at grad school that it says that my Spanish is incorrect. Oh, so Argentina, Uruguay, we're all incorrect, the way that we speak. But, but again, we judge the way that we hear other people. So speaking is a really challenging. We do have to intentionally create those spaces for our students. Don't think that if they're not speaking at all day, the practice in English, that they're not learning it. They are. So the speaking, please don't force them. Don't make the student come to the front of the classroom and say, you're gonna speak, you're gonna present, and it's gonna be in English because you have to learn how to do this, especially high school, because you're creating trauma right there. So please don't do that, okay? Well, we don't have any more time, I'm sorry, but I hope you keep on talking about this. I hope you understood how we should be using the emergent bilinguals versus English language learners. This was like a big, super overview of what happens, how it is, and just dig into this. That's my email address. Please, I love to help teachers. This is my first year that I'm having this opportunity. So reach out, we can sit down, we can talk more about the WIDA descriptors, about our emergent bilinguals, about the dual language piece that we're entering into CCSD. And if you're a bilingual teacher and you're gonna be teaching bilingual, reach out to me because we are recruiting teachers for the program, right? So just let me know. Thank you.
All right.